So we'll move on to night 2 without being too melancholy there towards the end. Sorry. Move on to night 2. And for me, first match of the night. Kickoff match was randomly Liv Morgan versus Natalya. Not put together in any sort of way, really. I believe the friends, although they were giving each other a bit of shit. Okay, it was a nice little warm up, but the only thing I want to say on it is, Liv Morgan should have got the win. Makes sense. They're building their character up, and let's face it, Natalya's there to sort of lose to younger talent anyway these days. So there's not a lot to say on that one, but I thought I'll give it a quick mention that Liv Morgan getting the right decision there.
Yeah.
So the first match of Mania that wasn't a kickoff show, we had surprisingly. I say surprisingly in the position it was in. We had Rhea Ripley versus Charlotte Flair for the NXT Women's title. And I expected this to be higher up in the card. Although the more I think about it, I'm like, well, it's not normally on the card at all. So it's still a big improvement for an NXT title anyway. Yeah. But it was the first match out. And do you know what? It was a fucking good match.
Mm-hmm.
I was surprised. I didn't think I'd enjoy this match as much as it did. I don't really have a lot of time for Charlotte. I think she's overrated as fuck. I'll be honest with you. And she's almost like this sort of character of privilege, and she's like, well, everyone knows who your dad is, so you get all the pushes and all the glory, And I don't know. I was half going into it like, this is going to be a bit naff, but you know what? They both worked fantastically well together. It was great seeing Charlotte fight her evil twin. It was just, that's what it is. It's like when you get like Malibu Barbie and then Rockstar Barbie really in it. You know what I mean? It's like they're just the same character with different outfits. But nevertheless, I'm sure Rhea Ripley doesn't like that, because as you saw from the 700 times they played that promo when she first started in WWE, she was likened to Charlotte. That she was told she looks just like Charlotte. And for some reason she sat in a baseball stadium when she tells you that story. But we've all seen that promo a few hundred times. But to be fair, they do kind of look alike. Yeah, so all in all, it was a really good match. They both really went for it. I forget, to be honest, because I spend most of my time thinking she's overrated. Charlotte is actually really good in the ring, technically. And I think they both worked fantastically well together. And for me, the only disappointment, and I think you probably saw it coming, Carl, but the only disappointment for me is that Rhea didn't win it. I really wanted to see her win and get that sort of rub from that. But from a managerial point of view, as it were, with WWE, I get why they want to move Charlotte over to NXT and push that and make some more money for NXT, especially because they've got this looming threat of AEW to compete with. So it kind of makes sense to me in that sense, but I really did want to see Rhea take the win on this one.
Yeah, I think, for me, it was a foregone conclusion that Charlotte was going to win this match. For part and parcel of the reasons you've said there is that WWE, no mistake about it, are shit in the bed in terms of how AEW kicking their ass every Wednesday. So they're trying to pull over some star power. Whether or not Charlotte Flair is star power in terms of a global appeal is remains to be seen, from my opinion. But I think it was very clear that was going to be the case. I think the match itself, I agree, was really good. I think both of them put a really good shift in. And I think they did a really good job of actually keeping Rhea Ripley strong despite her loss, because she did put up a really good fight with Charlotte. It's just one of them, though, isn't it?
Well, do you know what? I will say, for a brief second, I didn't know if they were going to go for this. That wasn't a tap out, because it felt like she was trying to sort of hit her. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then it was like, oh, the match is over. She's tapped out. I was like, was that a tap? Was that really a tap? But it was. But when you're like, I don't know, for a sec there, I was like, are they done with this feud even? I get that she got the win on that night, but are they done with this feud? Is she gonna have a rematch? Did they do rematches anymore?
Well, I mean, that's it. Where do you go from here? I mean, obviously we've had some breaking news come in today that kind of might throw a bit of a spanner in the works. But initially off the back of this match, you kind of think to yourself, well, does Rhea Ripley stay on NXT now and go down the rematch route, or does she end up going over to Raw or to SmackDown now and kind of getting that call up now that she has lost the title? Historically, when an NXT superstar loses their title, it's usually a case for them to get called up to the main show. So
yeah, it's a fair point. It's going to be kind of weird though if they keep sending big stars back to NXT and bringing up young talent to the main roster, we're going to end up with the total opposite. Raw's going to be full of unknown new talent, and NXT is just going to be a stacked card full of stars we all knew.
Yeah,
just to compete.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting strategy.
Oh yeah. But yeah, I did thoroughly enjoy the match. There's not a lot I want to say on it in terms of all I'd say is like it's definitely worth a watch to anyone listening. If you're gonna sort of pick and choose your matches on Mania to watch, this is definitely one that's worth a watch. And I honestly didn't think I'd be saying that.
Yep.
So the next match, to go from what was a well storied, well booked match, you knew what was happening. The feud was built up really well. And it was a really good match to watch. The next match on the card, I think they just pulled two names from a hat. Is that how this one was booked? Because I didn't even know they even knew each other. Never mind, having a match. But the next match on the card was Alistair Black versus Bobby Lashley. Yeah.
I think this for me was just a complete waste of time. It's a waste of a feud.
Well, were they feuding? Was that a thing?
Well, I mean, I've got some notes around this for when we talk around Raw, but for whatever reason, the last kind of few weeks of Raw, Alistair Black's been coming out and basically just beating up different black guys for some reason, right?
Okay, yeah.
So I feel like this was just the next logical progression of he's a black guy too. We need to put him on the card. Let's have him fight him. It just it's just a waste of time. Like, this for me felt like something you would just see on Raw as one of them 15-minute filler matches. I don't get Alistair Black at the minute because he's built up as this amazing guy, but he does fuck all. He just does a little spinny kick every now and again, and comes up like a little vampire. So he's got that going on.
Although it looks like, looking at the way he came out at Mania, it looks like he might have leveled up because he had a few extra spikes and stuff. Yeah, but. I don't get it. Yeah, I'm confused by him, I'll be honest.
Exactly, and I'm completely done with this fucking Lashley Lana thing. The big story plot thing of this match was that for the most part, Bobby Lashley was in control, and he had it ready to go with the Dominator and Lana, for whatever reason, fresh off what AEW did the other week, just on a Dynamite show. She calls an audible and says to him, no, don't do the Dominator, do the spear, similar to what fucking MJF did that cost the Butcher and the Blade that match, a few weeks ago. And he goes, okay.
Like you said, that was on a normal weekly show.
Exactly. And it's just like, okay. And then he gets, Alistair Black gets the fucking Black Master and pulls the win. It was just that there's no way you would ever convince me that was a WrestleMania worthy match. No, fucking waste of time.
It really wasn't. It was not a match that was it even built up. I think it just happened on the night. Was this even mentioned before Mania?
I have no idea. I think it was just one of those ones that maybe got mentioned like the day before. It definitely wasn't, brought up on TV as like a big must-see thing or anything.
Yeah, this is about as well built as Shorty G feuding with Sheamus. I'll be honest. It's like, oh yeah, that was a thing briefly. Yeah, and it wasn't that good a match, if I'm honest. I feel like originally, and I haven't looked into where Rusev has gone, I'll be honest with you, although there probably is a reason. But I feel like this is probably where it should have gone. It should have been Lashley versus Rusev to finally end their feud. But then that kind of fizzled out really quick anyway. Probably, I don't want to say really quick because I didn't like the feud. So, the sooner it was gone, the better. But I feel like they had this story built up with this whole, she's now with Bobby and she used to be with Rusev, and and this was sort of inevitably where it was going to go. And then Rusev's not about, so it's like, well, fuck it, we'll just use Alistair Black. He's not doing nothing.
Yeah.
Weird. Mm-hmm. But that being said, the next match on the card was surprisingly pleasant. So we had Otis versus Dolph Ziggler. Surprisingly, Otis coming out without Tuck. Mm-hmm. Thought he'd be with him on that, but there you go. It kind of makes sense again from a point of view of not having too many people around, because obviously this has been built up around Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville, so they were inevitably going to come down to the ring, which they did in the match. So I think probably because there was going to be 4 there, they didn't want Tucker there as well. Maybe, I don't know. But
yeah, I think they probably tried to allude to. I think on the SmackDown beforehand, didn't Dolph like beat him down and was going to like decapitate him with some steel steps or something until Mandy ran down, and then the big reveal happened. So maybe he's kind of selling his injuries from that or something in kayfabe.
Yeah. It makes sense. It's just it's weird, isn't it, when you see so many people like have worse done to them than that and turn up the next week.
Yeah,
it's like, yeah, apparently Tucker's not that tough. But nevertheless, I understand where they're coming from it from a point of view. They had to get him out of the scene for obvious reasons, so that's fine. But yeah, it was a good match. Otis coming out looking dominant as fuck, and you know he's a monster, so makes a lot of sense. Dolph again, the Eternal, like he's really good at selling, so that's what he does. And yeah, it was kind of a nice end to that. It's one of them where the best way I can explain it is it's just a cute little story, wasn't it? You know, he got the girl in the end, yay! You know, so I have no dislike for this match. I wasn't overly invested. I know some people loved the story between Otis and Mandy, but I mean, is it really going to last for someone who's like, you were 10 minutes late, so I've left with another man? You know, if you take away the betray, like the actual, like the fact that someone, you know, text, you know, behind their back. If you take that away, it's like, right, so he's late one time and you leave with another man. You know, this relationship's not going to last.
It'd be funny seeing it go the other way now, where he's finally got his dream girl, then he's just like trying his best to get out of the relationship because she's just a fucking psycho.
That would tickle the fuck. I would love that. That would be really fun.
I think though, like for me, like this whole story, I still don't know. Like, what did Sonya get out of it? She was like, "Oh yeah, you know, you'll get what you want, and I'll get what I want." What is what she wanted just not for her to date Otis? I literally don't.
Yeah, I don't know if they were trying to suggest like I get my friend back, but right. Then you know it kind of goes at odds with what Dolph wants because Dolph wants Mandy as well.
Yeah, so, I don't know. That just didn't make sense. Yeah. I still don't understand why she would have got involved and stuff anyway. And then I thought it was weird the big reveal. Like, you know, we kind of hypothesized that these glitches and stuff like that was going to be like a returning Mustafa Ali, and it was going to be something, and then it just turns out to be fucking Big Brother. Like, I've been filming these guys. Have a look. It's the truth.
Do you know what kind of bugs me with that though? Like you're saying, right, that until this hacker got involved, they didn't have TVs. They weren't capable of seeing these things.
Yeah.
Because we could see it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm all for suspending disbelief, but when we're watching SmackDown and we know what's gone on, Mandy Rose could have easily got to the bottom of it that he was tricked. Even if she didn't know who did it, you know, she could have got to the bottom of the fact that he did receive a text. You know, it's very odd that they're going, look at the footage we found. It's like, you could have watched SmackDown. you could have watched SmackDown. Like, yeah. I know you're on the fucking show and you might not want to, but if you're trying to get to the bottom of something, you could have just fucking watched it. It's weird when they try and... It's like when... and it's this old cliche that they always do in wrestling where they're hatching their evil plans in front of a fucking camera as well. Yeah. It just ends up being put up on the Titantron. It's like, there's someone backstage just screwing people over left and right. There's a little camera going around going, well, they're hatching an evil plan. I'm going to put this onto the audience live. You know... And I know you've got to kind of look past that a little bit, but at the same time, it's like, don't get a hacker involved who reveals everything to them when it's something that you could have easily fucking seen.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I think when we first started seeing them glitches, I definitely didn't think that they would be anywhere near this storyline in terms of their involvement.
Yeah,
so
that was a weird connect, wasn't it? And I think they're still building, because isn't it like the truth's being revealed, or he's all about giving people the truth, whoever this hacker is. So I don't know if he's going to interfere with a few other people's stuff, and it's going to be that for a while before he reveals. I don't know. It certainly took some of the mystery away from me of that.
And I think as well,
I'm less interested in who the hacker is now.
Well, you know, it could just be typical, you know, WWE trying to throw you off the scent. But if you watch that video, you do see that when the guy puts their hand up, that it is a white hand. So are they just trying to move away from it being Mustafa Ali, or is it someone else that we don't know who it is?
And I know they're trying to make the gimmick sound cool, like, oh, he's a hacker and he's revealing stuff, but the bottom line is what the booking is, a nosy bastard. Because let's be honest, if he didn't have all the technology around him and he was just going up to people going, hey, Randy, do you know Wedge said you're a dickhead? Right, then he'd just be a nosy bastard, wouldn't he?
So, to be honest, that is a gimmick I can get behind. really open is that, just like a fucking office gossip, just going around going, do you know what he said about you?
And then walking away going, the truth will be revealed. Yeah, just
Book
I don't
it.
know. It took some of the mystery out of it for me anyway. I'm a bit less enthused about the whole hacky thing now.
I think, but not to digress too much from the actual match itself. I think, as we've been known to do sometimes, but I think, I've not been that invested in the story either. It got a bit convoluted, but obviously it's the payoff we all wanted. Otis gets the girl, and it's all happy and stuff like that. So for what it was, I did quite enjoy it. I thought it was really good.
Yeah, and the right ending. That's how it should be done. And then Dolph will go back and just, I don't know, pick someone else. Is he going to tag with Bobby Roode again? Who knows? We'll see. And I would have been more excited about this, and I'm very curious to hear your feelings on it, Carl. The Edge versus Randy Orton match, which I was massively looking forward to, and I did enjoy, but maybe not as much as I thought I was going to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought it was really, really great. Some really good stuff in there. It was what it needed to be, I think, based on kind of the brutality aspect of it and stuff like that. He was trying to get revenge for what he'd done to his wife and, talking about his kids and what he'd done to him, just coming back, and definitely had the brutality aspect. That being said, didn't need to go on for about 40 minutes.
No. For me, that's probably the only issue I had with it. It was a good match. You could see there's one other issue that I want to mention in a sec, but yeah, I don't know. They made it feel really personal. They put it across really well. They did some massive spots, but they did not have to show me every single fucking part of the performance center. Right? I don't need to know where the break room and the kitchen are. Could have cut all that shit out, as far as I'm concerned. They were moving locations that much that I honestly thought they were going to somehow end up in Edge's house. Like, they end up in the back of a truck. You never know, right?
Imagine that fucking RKO to fucking Lyric and Ruby.
Yeah, here's the Viper. But yeah, and initially, I'm glad they sort of moved around a bit, because initially it felt a little bit like what they sort of almost trialed with Gargano and Ciampa by having them fight in the gym, and I was like, they're kind of just retreading that, really. It would have been funny if you saw a guy trying to repair the damage they'd fucking made, to be honest. But yeah, and it felt a bit of a retread with them fighting in the gym initially, although I think Edge and Randy did it better. So I do think it was good to sort of move around a little bit. But yeah, I think we just saw way too much of the Performance Center, and it just ran a little bit too long. I don't want to be too unfair to the match. It was really good, and it's been a really well-built feud. The only other thing I want to moan about, and I promise I will not moan about it after this, right, is the fact that bit at the end when Edge is so conflicted about hitting the concerto on Randy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, that is such a painful moment. Yeah. He didn't even blink when he did it to MVP.
This is true.
So like why do you care more about Randy than MVP? Randy's been actively trying to hurt you, and you're like, yeah, I don't mind hitting MVP. That's fine. Everyone does it. But yeah, and for me, it was almost like I still kind of wish they hadn't have done the concerto on MVP, because it kind of made the whole difficulty of this situation kind of weird.
Do you know what? I think that's an excellent show. I think my kind of view on it was it felt a bit flat at the end, because, don't get me wrong, I think the concerto was a really fitting way to do it, because that's what started it all.
Yeah.
In the first place, so that made sense. But they'd built it up to like they'd fucking been fighting on trucks and jumping off ladders and climbing on top of this big massive trailer, and I was like, oh shit, someone's gonna go like getting thrown off here or something. And it was just a concerto that you could have just done on the floor. Like, there was no.
Yeah, it's a fair point, actually. Yeah. Considering what had gone on up to that point, like even the bit in the weight room and stuff was probably more brutal than that concerto. So yeah, I take your point on that it was the fitting end story wise, poetically, but given the match that they'd had, yeah, I take your point.
Yeah, it just it didn't need to be on top of a fucking massive truck if it's just a concerto. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, why build all the way up to finish like that? Like, even if he threw him off there or something and then still managed to get up, and then the only way to do it like that would have been better, but just don't know, just kind of felt a bit flat. There was no need to do it on top of there. But I just think it was, I don't want to shit on it, because
that's the thing. It was well built and it was a good match.
And I feel like it has been shat on quite a lot. I think it's probably Dave Meltzer or some fucking idiot is giving it like like a 1 star or a -star thing, and it's like, well, that's just bullshit. Like, you don't get me wrong, whoever produced that match were fucking crazy for having to go 40 minutes. It didn't need to, and it was a bit like, okay, fucking hell.
And this is a match where you expect it to run longer because it's last man standing.
Yeah.
So you expect it to be a fairly long match, but not 40 minutes.
Yeah, it was just a bit too much. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, fine, but there's no way you can ever say that was a 1-star match or anything.
No. You know, it's just when they said Mania was too big for one night, I didn't realize they meant because of this match. That's all.
Well, yeah, it clearly was just because of this this one thing. But yeah, I don't know. I think I did really enjoy it, so I don't want to shit on it. That being said, you know, it is a shame. I think that this was Edge's return match, and I feel like it's that way with a lot of things that happened. You know, because obviously you want to see it in front of fans, and you want to see, but they literally were working with what they had available to them. So that's
the thing, and I sincerely hope, because Edge is back now. I think he signed a contract with them for a I don't want to sort of quote myself on how long, but I think he's definitely back for a good while now. And I hope he does get another, obviously not going to be a WrestleMania moment, but I hope he does get another moment now where he gets to enjoy the crowd again, because you could see that pop he got at Royal Rumble was, you know, that was, it was something, we were all in awe, but it was something that just magnificent for him. And I think to come back because you miss that energy to then, you know, land in this situation where there's no crowds at all, it must be really strange for him. And I sincerely hope, you know, because I honestly don't know how temporary this is. I sincerely hope this is all done and dusted and he gets that sort of crowd reaction again.
Yeah, agreed.
Do you want to mention the controversy of the of that match?
So I think I've got it down as something to talk through in the ringside report, but
okay.
I think, yeah, so obviously there was a certain part of this match that caused quite a bit of a stir, so find out more when you tune into the ringside report, because we'll be talking about that.
Love it. Now you have to tune in. Right, so this, do you not think there's a little bit of a pattern of like good match and then because the next match was and that was the Raw tag titles. We had the Street Profits and what do you even want to call these other guys?
We can't even call them fucking the Mexican medley anymore, because
they fucking ruined that for us, didn't they?
Yeah.
So we had Austin Theory for some reason and Angel Gaza tag teaming, because you know they've always been a good team together. I don't know. I've only just got to know Austin Theory as well, and now he's suddenly WrestleMania-ing. He's not even. I assume he's still on NXT technically, and or is he on the main scene now until Andrade comes back again?
Who knows?
And Andrade, you need to watch out, man. We all know that if you have too many injuries, Vince ends up not liking you. But yeah, so we had this sort of bit of a mixed bag of a match because of the Andrade situation. So it's one of them matches where I'm not a massive fan of the Street Profits anyway, and I don't know how you felt about this. It was an obvious win. You know, they're not going to put the titles on a random tag team they stapled together the night before, right? So there was an obvious win for the Street Profits. But the Street Profits at the end made it seem like it was such a big thing. They hadn't won the titles, they'd retained the fucking titles, and it was such a massive deal. I know it was WrestleMania, but it's like all you did was beat a tag team that had been together for 5 fucking minutes, and you're treating it like the biggest thing you've ever done.
Right. So look, I chat on the Alistair Black and Bobby Lashley match and said that it's not a WrestleMania worthy match, it's a Raw match at best. This one is I'm fucking surprised that this made main event, because how the fuck is this on WrestleMania? It was bullshit. I literally was sat there watching this going, what the fuck? This is something this is a bathroom break match on Raw, and this is on WrestleMania. And fine.
Yeah. This should have been on Heat. Never mind anything else.
Fucking Velocity. This is what this should have been on, right? But in fact, the fucking WWF Jacked, that fucking series that lasted about fucking 3 weeks, right? But for me, I solely believe this match only went ahead, and the Street Profits only went ahead because you've got a bit of a hard on for Bianca Belair, right? So the big thing what they did in this is they brought her back, right? And it was like her big call up. You know, we saw the kind of run out she got at the Royal Rumble, where, you know, she had a fantastic showing in that. And this is now where they're trying to obviously build her up as one of the next kind of big women stars. And I truly believe this is the only reason the Street Profits are getting any fucking screen time, is so they could do this thing and bring out fucking his wife, Bianca Belair.
Now, for me, Bianca was the only thing saving this match from being a total fucking dull dud.
Yeah.
because at least there was that. Hey, look, she's turned up. And it wasn't even that big a moment, but at least there was something. Before that, it was just the Street Profits beat a tag team that no one gives a shit about.
Exactly.
So it was. I don't see. This is the problem. This is the problem, right? And I don't want to go into like fantasy booking all too much, but this is the problem because they won the titles from a tag team that no one gave a shit about, and they've retained the titles against a tag team that no one gives a shit about. If they'd have done what I wanted and put the tag titles on the Authors of Pain, built them up as unbeatable and unstoppable, and had the Street Profits take the win against the Authors of Pain at WrestleMania, I could have got behind them being so fucking pleased with themselves. Because it would have been a big victory. They finally won the titles against two monsters. And understandably, AOP are out at the moment. Injuries happen and you can't predict these things. But even so, it was retaining against a nothing tag team. It's not that big a deal. It might be on WrestleMania, but I don't know. They were really trying to push it like, yeah, this is amazing. Yeah. And it's like, no, it's not. Get out the ring so we can get on with the next one.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not into them at all.
No.
So I've no investment. I'm certainly not invested in the fucking makeshift tag team that was fucking Austin Theory and fucking Angel Gaza. I wouldn't have even been interested if it was Andrade as well. Literally, just there's no what has happened to that tag team division.
I know. And this is hampering Gaza as far as I'm concerned, because Gaza, I think, has got a lot of potential. I've said it a few times. This kind of shit is like, don't sort of waste him with this kind of bullshit. Give him a good singles run. Andrade keeps going out on injury or suspension or whatever, so ignore him for a while. Give Gaza a run.
Well, that's it. Like, why not have fucking Andrade versus Gaza and have that as be the thing and have that for the US title? Like, fair dues, Andrade's injured or he's showing signs of flu or whatever. He's not fucking, on the...
I think, I don't know if he actually had an injury, I don't even think it's COVID related. I think he's hurt his rib or something.
Oh, right. Fucking hell. Probably fucking co-kid related because he's fucking big smackhead anyway, ain't he? But,
is he? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It was off for that fucking wellness violation, wasn't he? He's getting fucking...
Oh, of course. Wellness violation. They try and paint it as something, but it's drugs, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So
it's a fair point. I mean, it might be a tactic. They might be able to story this. He's never lost the title because he's never fucking there.
But yeah, I mean, I've been quite impressed with this Angel Gaza. I know that you've been quite keen on him as well since he's kind of come up. But like,
oh yeah,
he would be the kind of guy that could reinvigorate the US title scene. And yeah, I don't know, just kind of throwing them together initially with Andrade because they're both Mexican, and then having him with Humberto because he's Mexican, and Rey Mysterio's there for some reason. Oh, because he's Mexican, and it's like, oh shit, we've run out of Mexicans. I know Austin Theory, he lives around the corner. We'll have him. I don't know, just lazy, and it just didn't need to be on WrestleMania.
No, totally agree. This match could have been totally cut, and I would not have cared.
Yeah, and fair dues, Cesaro and Gulak, they're not massively over. They're on the fucking pre-show. Get him on here. Or even fucking Natalya.
Do you know what? Even for as simple as doing that, the kickoff show is going to have 2 matches.
Yeah.
Then I would have lived with it. I would have been fine with it being on the kickoff show. But the fact that it wasn't, I'd as sooner had Natalya and Liv Morgan on the main show and them on the kickoff show.
Yeah, same.
So speaking of women's power, the next match was the 5-pack. For some reason, they just changed it to Fatal 5-Way now. They did give it that title, but I don't know if you noticed that, but it's just Fatal 5-Way. Fatal for some. So yeah, it was okay. I just one thing, what I will honestly say, I'm a big enough man to admit when I'm wrong, right? And a few podcasts ago, I couldn't tell you what one it was, guys. You'll have to listen to all of them. Sorry, and just do that, and we'll go from there. But yeah, in one of them, I mentioned that Lacey Evans was very green in the ring, and I don't think she was ready for the title. And I still think we called that match fairly, where I said some of the spots she done were almost dangerous because she wasn't able to do them.
Yep.
Since then, she has clearly improved a massive amount because I think she was fantastic in this match. Mm-hmm. And I'm willing to eat my hat on that one. Because that's what it's about, Carl. Having chats and eating hats.
That's it.
Right?
That's it.
So I'm willing to admit I was ready for Lacey Evans to win this. by the time we got to the end of the match and it was just down to her and Bailey, and she'd been that good in the match, I was ready for her to win it. I was like, fair enough. It's been a really good match. She's been really impressive in the ring, and she still wouldn't have been me pick to be the main winner. But when it got down to the last two, I was on board for that. I would have been totally fine with that, and she did do a really good job. So that's the first thing I want to mention, because I don't think I've been unfair to her, but I have sort of discredited her in ring ability, and I do think she's improved a lot since then.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it was a good match overall. I was honestly expecting some sort of Sasha Banks, Bailey, Healy 10. I don't know how it would have gone, whether Bailey would have turned on her head or the other way around, but I was expecting something, and it kind of didn't happen. Weirdly as well, for a match that's no DQ, that they clearly signposted as no DQ, I don't even know why Sasha Banks walked away. Like, she left to come back, and it's like, who made you leave? It's an ODQ. You could have stayed there and carried on.
Yeah, it's very true.
I found that a little bit odd, but other than that, yeah.
I don't know, for me, I'm not going to pull any punches. I thought it sucked.
Okay.
I mean, I get what you're saying. I think Lacey did well. It's just, I don't know. They built up Tamina prior to this for no fucking reason. She was the first one eliminated. I could have fucking bet me house that this was going to be the case. They were never going to back Tamina. So what?
Do you know why? Because she can't wrestle.
Exactly.
Can't wrestle, right? So she couldn't be in there for long, or you'd have noticed that she can't fucking wrestle.
It's like, I mean, it's one of them. We give Charlotte a lot of shit because she's got a famous dad, but she can wrestle. Tamina has got a famous dad and could do fuck all, right? So, Jesus.
That is a fair point. Yeah, and she come back all like aggressive, didn't she? And like, actions speak louder than words. Yeah, they did, didn't they?
Yeah. So obviously she, pointless there even being in it. Naomi, like, she came back, hot, white hot at the fucking Royal Rumble, as that return, and we were like, holy shit, like, she's gonna, be given a bit of a push now. Fucking hell, she's just part of the shuffle. She's lost in here now.
Well, as you might know, Carl, I was twittering away during Mania, and one of the things that I'd noticed in the hashtag WrestleMania was a lot of people wanted Naomi to take the win, and I think that would have been a good call. It certainly would have, from what I can see on Twitter, it would have got a good fan reaction. And it's a shame, like you say, she was like, she come back with a real head of steam, and then they just kind of went, I don't know what that was about. Yeah,
no idea. And I think, I don't know, this whole Sasha and Bailey, will she, won't she kind of thing, it's just proper convoluted as well, isn't it? It's like why would Sasha save Bailey after all that? Because Bailey had a perfect opportunity to stop fucking Thingy getting pinned, do you know what I mean? And she just sat there and watched it. So why then?
No, it's a fair point. Like, and then Sasha didn't even seem that pissed off by it when she come back to help her. It was Bailey the one who was angry. So I don't get, because Bailey was like, "Oh, you really think I betray you?" I was like, "But she kind of just betrayed you." Yeah, it's kind of weird storytelling that.
Exactly, and I think obviously the writing's on the wall that this is going to be the build now, and we will eventually see one of them turn on the other one. Assuming that they don't just forget about the feud like they typically would do. But yeah, I don't know. It just felt. Just a shit match.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. I take your point on that. It certainly wasn't, as far as matches for Mania go, it's not going to be a memorable one. I probably enjoyed it more than you by the sounds of it, but it wasn't a big match by any means. So before we move on to the next one, I think it's only right that we mention, and there will be a slight reason to this. It's only right that we mention that there was a little bit of shenanigans, and it resulted in the Gronk pinning Mojo Rawley for the 24/7 title, and then for some reason was like, I'm done hosting Mania now, and fucked off for the night. That was him. Apparently you can do that. So he was then replaced by Titus O'Neil, naturally, who continued to host for the rest of the night, which I'll be honest, at the time, and I even tweeted as such, I was like, do you, like, the Gronk wasn't doing anything, do you really need to replace him with Titus O'Neil to stand there and do nothing as well? That being said, he gave me a really entertaining moment after the next match. So, the next match, Carl, was the absolute batshit crazy, and again, in all the right ways, Firefly Funhouse. How did you feel about this one, Carl?
I loved it.
It was fucking brilliant, wasn't it? They took so many shots that you wouldn't even think they'd be allowed to take as well. Like the sort of Dean Ambrose reference and such. I don't know how much creative freedom they give Bray, but it feels like a lot of stuff that normally Vince wouldn't allow, if you know what I mean. But it was so good. It was really good. I love the way they did. It was clearly like cheeseball. I don't even know you could call it a match, really. It was less of a match than the Boneyard match, but it was brilliant. And that ending was beautiful. The context and the way they did the John Cena quote. It was just fantastic. Definitely something that needs watching. I've watched it again since because it's brilliant to watch. Some of all the old references. You sort of basically go through. For those who haven't seen it, you go through John Cena's career really, in a weird way. But then there's references to the NWO and WCW. It's so crazy, so insane. You have to watch it a few times just to pick up on all the references. But yeah, it was just. Yeah, I have nothing but good things to say about this one, to be honest with you.
The same. Like, I think you said before, it's a little bit cheesy, it's definitely, kooky as fuck, but it was just really compelling from a storytelling standpoint. I think, ultimately Wyatt, this kind of Firefly Funhouse match was basically taking place inside the psyche of Cena. It was where Wyatt has made Cena kind of confront all his fears, his failures, and ultimately his kind of hypocrisy over the years, from the ruthless aggression stuff. He's been very on the record. Cena is saying that he fucked it up and he nearly got fired off the back of that. He basically answered Vince's challenge of like who's got ruthless aggression, and Vince was like, okay, then go on, then prove it. And he was built like a brick shithouse, but didn't have anything else. And they played on that. They played on that quite a bit. I thought, they even did the Nikki Bella shot, which I was.
Yeah, that was again other things that you think would be quite sensitive. And John's obviously signed off on this stuff. He's filmed it with him. You know what I mean? And even that, you're like, oh, that was a bit of a shot. But fair play to both of them. They both went all in with this. This was a lot of like, it was quite. Not negative on John Cena, but like you say, it was picking up on his hypocrisy. You wouldn't think he'd be on board for doing this in some senses, but fair play to them both. They both fully participated in this, and it was really good. It was very different and really good.
Well, that's it. I think I've watched it like 2 or 3 times. Like you say, I'm probably going to watch it more as well, just because I keep picking up on new things each time. But
that's the thing. I mean, because he doesn't just stick with John Cena. I mean, like he at one point, Bray's doing a surprisingly good impression of Eric Bischoff and stuff like that. And this is at a time when Eric Bischoff has just been fired by WWE and the popping references like that. It's just it was so. There's so many little nods in there. That's that is you have to watch it a couple of times. You really do, at least a couple of times.
But like I think. As you were saying then, it's surprising that Cena was so on board with this, because ultimately it tells a very true and real story, which is that Cena refused to put Bray Wyatt over the first time they faced each other at WrestleMania. Cena said Bray isn't ready, and I think there was one of the things in there he was saying like Cena was meant to listen, and it kind of cuts to the WrestleMania 30 where all the fans are behind Bray, and Cena was there saying, oh, he's not ready. And basically that at the time was Cena kind of just shitting the bed a bit because other stars were getting over, and he kind of wanted to cling on to that. And he basically made a real dick move that killed the Bray Wyatt character. And it really did, because after that, after he lost, that the fans just kind of was sick of seeing him lose, and he kept getting booked to lose off the back of that. And this was the opportunity that Cena could have made him.
This to me as well, it really says a lot that Cena is sort of big enough to admit that he was like making poor calls at that point, and he was afraid of new talent coming up. Maybe a little bit scared of his position in the company at that point, because he was getting sort of past his tenure. Because this is before he's sort of more of a movie guy now. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. It's almost him sort of reflectively going, "Yeah, I should have put you over," and I should, like, just like you're saying, like it points out a lot of his hypocrisy, and it's nice to see, because that's clearly. I don't know if they've had conversations about it. I imagine they've had conversations about this, but this is a clear admission of the way Cena has been, and clearly he's well aware of the way he's been. Like that, I remember being annoyed when Cena was doing his promo that they ultimately used for this quote against Cena at the end of the match.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that they went back and used the voiceover of Cena's promo just before Bray hits the Sister Abigail on him, I'm like, that was so deliberate and so brilliant, because I was so annoyed that Cena had the sort of the gall to sort of accuse someone else of this, but all the time, really, it was always going to be this reflection on himself, and it was just so wonderfully done.
Yeah, it was it was just fantastic, wasn't it? There's no denying it. It was so well done. And like,
do you know what? I'm utterly thrilled as well that after that absolutely poor fucking showing at Super Showdown, where they took the title off Bray, I'm so glad they did now, and it's not harmed the Fiend as far as I'm concerned anymore, because this was a fantastic bit of storytelling that they couldn't have done if Bray was the champ, because Bray would have had to have been involved in a title match that probably wouldn't have been anywhere near as good as this.
Mm-hmm. I think as well that they've kind of fucking fluked it there, to be fair, because I don't think any of this stuff was planned at the time. This match was produced by what's his face, fucking Bruce Pritchard and Bray Wyatt, and then Cena got involved towards the end, and
right.
made a couple of tweaks and stuff like that. So this was definitely a last minute thing that they've done. I think prior to COVID-19, kicking the world's ass like it has done. I think this probably just would have been a normal match as such, but obviously it ended up being something so much kind of more than we ever thought it would, and it probably has saved the Bray character to a degree, because after that loss to Goldberg, you do just kind of think, well, fucking hell, it's happening again. But
yeah, but for me, this is like, you can just totally forget about that sort of blip there with the Fiend. This is to me, this is the kind of thing that makes the Fiend a mainstay. He's going to be remembered now. Do you know what I mean? Because there was a point when I think both you and I were in agreement that he's going to get to a point when this is going to get a bit stale, and he can't keep doing the same thing. But if they keep letting Bray run the way he does, with the creativity he's got, he'll be able to keep the Fiend interesting. And then we'll get to a point way down the line where the Fiend's kind of like seeing Kane or The Undertaker come back, and you're like, oh God, remember him? He was awesome. And I sincerely hope that they let him carry on with this creativity, because this is a massive display of how creative Bray Wyatt truly is.
Oh God, yeah. And I think something else we have to kind of draw attention to for this kind of piece of art, if you will call it that, is I was surprised by the amount of IWC wrestling community fucking references there were in there. Like you mentioned before, the John Moxley thing, it's well documented that I think it was on Jericho's podcast where they had Moxley on as a guest, and he was talking about why he ended up quitting WWE, and it was because of the type of fucking gimmick stuff that he was being asked to do, and the type of storylines, and he didn't want to do them. And Vince was quoted as saying, "But this is good shit." And
yeah,
to actually put something like that
to make
in
that reference. And to be honest, I was originally surprised when they let them have a little Devil Vince puppet on the Firefly Funhouse, but the fact they brought him back and they done that quote, I think is they've given him a lot of freedom, because that is the type of stuff that I normally would typically say Vince would be totally against. And I don't know, maybe he's there going, I don't get it, but it's working, so keep doing it. Or maybe he does fully get what's going on. I don't know. He's an odd man to understand, but they've let them run with this, and it was definitely worth it.
Yeah, I think I keep finding new bits every time I watch it. Stuff around the Cena beats himself up about not turning heel, and hence the NWO Hogan references and stuff like that, and the parallels between his career and Hogan's career, and the way Vince kind of viewed both of them as the top guy and stuff like that. It's just, there's so many little nuances to it, and you do pick different bits up each time, so it is fantastic. And I think ultimately the Boneyard match is going to get all the plaudits around. There was two kind of kooky, supernatural, different stuff on night one and night two, and from the polls that I put out there on our TikTok channel and stuff like that, the Boneyard match is going down as the best of the two. But for me, I think as an old school guy, and the kind of many layers that this had as a storytelling piece, I don't know, I think this one kind of snatches it for me.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, mate. But yeah, that's pretty much all I can say. That makes anyone who hasn't seen it needs to see it. It's probably all I'd end on. So moving on to the last another note. Sorry, just while I think on, I mentioned before that they put the Undertaker stuff on last on day one, and I think it was the right call. How did you feel about the main event being the title match?
I actually think it was justified in this case because there was a build there, and it was, it should have been the main event.
No, I actually agree. I think whilst the Goldberg stuff was all a bit lackluster and a bit thrown together, the Drew and Brock stuff has been built up so well that it just makes a lot of sense to have it as the main event. We've all been waiting for this, and again, it was the right call to have Drew win. Another very quick match though, and I think, am I right in saying we know that Drew can go? He has a bit of longevity in the ring. I know he was up against Brock, who doesn't, but we know Drew can go. But we'll look at another. In some senses, it was good that it was a short match after all that, really, as well. After everything with the Firefly Funhouse, I think it was good that we weren't sort of still, because I mean, certainly for you and I, Carl, it's about half three in the morning at this point. I really wanted to see Drew v Brock, but I was ready to go to bed. So I was quite happy with the way they put this together. But it's a bit of a shame for Drew in some senses that he's had to win in the format he has, but definitely the right call. And I love the fact that Brock was so willing to put him over as well.
Yeah, I think it's one of them. And don't get me wrong, I was chuffed that Drew won this match, and Brock proper put him over as well. Like, there's no denying that. No matter how short the match is, he made Drew look like a star.
Yeah, credit to Brock.
Yeah, and he is fantastic at doing that. Like I've said before, like he will throw himself around and stuff like that for the right person. And he did proper make Drew look like a star. The problem I've got is that it was almost a little bit of a carbon copy of the Goldberg and Braun match, and it didn't need to be. Like, and it told, like, don't get me wrong, similar amount of times. This told a shitload more of a story, and it was far superior to the Goldberg Braun match.
Yeah.
But it didn't need to be so quick. Like, Brock isn't Goldberg. Brock can go as well, and I know they're not there.
He certainly can last longer than Goldberg.
Like exactly, but again, it was just kind of more finisher spamming. I know there was like German suplexes in there, and like the additional kind of thing of Drew kicking out at one, and there was all these like other little nuances to it that made it 10 times better than the fucking Goldberg Braun thing. But I don't know, at what point did really high profile main event matches just become finisher spams?
Yeah, no, I'd take your point. And weirdly, with this one, they could have had Brock hit the F5 really early on, had that kick out at one, and that shock that Brock has to bring it a bit more than just throwing his finisher out and dominating. So you could have built the match going longer off the back of that. Like, Brock's going to have to really pull something out of the bag for this one. And we've seen Brock go. We've seen Brock against Kurt Angle. We've seen the shooting star press. We've seen him, like, admittedly, they were all many moons ago, but we know that he can wrestle. I mean, he's an actual amateur wrestler, isn't he? Like, he done... I can't remember. Was it college level? I can't remember what level he did it to. But
yeah, he was NCAA champ.
There you go. So he's a very credible, legitimate wrestler as well, not just sports entertainment. So he could have. I know he doesn't do it too often these days, but he could have easily gone longer with it. Certainly more so than Goldberg could have. But I don't know. Maybe it was a bit of a mercy because it was a long night, and they just thought, well, we'll close it out quickly. But I do take your point. It was very similar in terms of the actual in-ring activity, that it was all just finisher. And I can only hope that it doesn't become a thing where that's all Drew's about then. We've already got Claymore Country. I don't want it to become all about like throwing Claymore kicks out there. So we'll see where it goes. Obviously, his when we move on to Raw, his next title defense was even better. So much more amazing and such a shock. But we'll mention that when we talk about Raw. So as for night 2, Carl, what was your rating?
So again, I feel bad saying it and stuff, and I know I changed my other one to 2.5, but this one I've got as a 2 as well, and I am going to stick by it. So I think the Firefly Funhouse match was fantastic. The outcome of Drew and Brock was fantastic. Edge and Orton, despite being way longer than it needed to be, was enjoyable, and Ripley Flair was pretty good as well. But there was far too many like Raw feel matches. Alistair Black, Lashley, fucking the tag titles, especially, even the women's 5-pack. It was just, I don't know, it was just low caliber. And even though the payoff of Otis and Dolph was good at the end, that was just like just a SmackDown match. You know what I mean? It didn't feel there were
I
less.
take your points. For me, I'm going to give this a 3. I actually said very early on that I rated this higher, and this is my preferred night. But I'm going to give it a 3 because I want to say this, that they were sort of fairly evenly balanced. I think the preference stems from certain aspects that I really enjoyed from this night. But I would have give this WrestleMania as a whole a 4 out of 5 if it had been one night. The bottom line is, I don't think this truly was too big for one night.
Mm-hmm.
They could have easily cut the Raw Tag Titles match. They could have cut the I don't know what you do with the kickoff shows. It doesn't really matter too much. They could have cut down the Edge Randy Orton, not got rid of the match, but cut down the match to a much more reasonable time. There's so many tweaks they could have made to condense that down to one night. And I know basically they're using the NXT takeover slot. That's what the 2 nights is about, really, isn't it? Because they couldn't do the Tampa Bay takeover, so we're using that sort of airtime to put another night of WrestleMania on. But I think you're totally right. I don't think there was actually enough there in terms of content, and then it's kind of weakened both nights. So I'm going to give it a 3. But I just want to sort of explain that bit, that for me, WrestleMania as a whole, the good stuff without the bad stuff would have been a 4. For like one night of WrestleMania of just all the awesome bits would have been a 4 for me.
Yeah, I think if I was to rate the whole thing, I think a 3. At tops for me, just, pull it all together, it didn't feel like a WrestleMania. I think, as you were saying though, I believe the reason they put it in 2 nights is because they couldn't do any like big battle royal gimmicky type matches that would have got a lot more people some airtime. So they've had to do a lot more kind of one-on-ones and stuff like that. And obviously they still want to reward the guys who've been putting in a shift over the last kind of 12 months, so you can kind of see. But at the same time, I don't know. I feel like if the match card, would have been just some of the matches like on here, like fucking without all the kind of filler that it felt like, then it definitely would have been worthy of a 3. But yeah, I don't know. I think in these circumstances, there's no way I could have rated it any higher as such. I think they did really well considering everything, and there was definitely, he took us on some new adventures that I don't think we'll ever see in a WrestleMania again. But for what it was, I did still enjoy it, but it just didn't feel like a WrestleMania, which I think in the circumstances you can't really blame them too much for.
Yeah. No, I'll take your point on that. It definitely didn't have that WrestleMania feel, but like you say, with reason, I suppose. One last thing, it's a weird thing to end on, but I just forgot to mention it, and there was a reason I did mention it, was Titus O'Neil took over as the host of WrestleMania. And the only reason I want to mention that, and for anyone listening who's not watched it yet, just go back and have a look at Titus's reaction to the Funhouse. It was worth him being there just for that face. It was funny as fuck.
I think it's got infinite meme and GIF potential, hasn't it?
Oh yeah, not half, yeah. And it sort of hit that place of like, yeah, that's kind of how we all felt. But his reaction was so much better than Gronk could have done. That I'm glad Titus was there just for that. So I just wanted to quickly mention that because I did allude to it and forgot about it. So that was WrestleMania, guys. Quite a weekend. Sadly, not the WrestleMania we were originally promised or hoping for. But hopefully, when all's said and done and we get to the other side of all this craziness that's going on in the world, WWE can put on something, maybe do a bigger deal of some of the other pay-per-views, or just, WrestleMania 37 is going to be an even bigger deal. I don't know, but hopefully we get back to form.